This is Hofstra's Campus Conversations, the official podcast of Hofstra University's leadership team, focusing on issues of importance to Hofstra and higher education. Now welcome today's host, Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Charlie Reardon.
Hello, thank you, and welcome to this episode of Campus Conversations. Today, we'll be discussing organizational agility, one of the four main goals of Hofstra's strategic plan, Hofstra 100. As we navigate our 100th year in the year 2035, we have developed a plan to advance the university to meet the needs of the next era. Joining me to talk about how we plan to attain excellence in organizational agility is Jesse Webster, Hofstra's Chief Information Officer and co-chair of the Organizational Agility Committee. Welcome, Jesse.
Hi, Charlie.
To get us started, Jesse, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you became a Chief Information Officer or CIO in a university setting?
I am an alum of the Lawrence Herbert School of Communication, so I want to call that out right off the top. I graduated from the TV video program, and so on some level that is part of how I became a CIO. But I've worked in technology-focused roles my whole life, as far back as high school, as we were talking about before. Mm-hmm. And so I spent some time at Hofstra twice, and in between I've done a bunch of consulting and agility and kind of those sorts of management consulting, management improvement, business process improvement roles. And I just came back to Hofstra for a deputy CIO role that really spoke to me. It was all about empowering people and connecting the university to what's next.
Right.
And kind of graduated to CIO through that role and where that's at. So I don't know that I ever expected to be a CIO, but it's really a fun job and a good connector kind of role to have on a campus when connecting is what you like to do.
Right. So what makes the job fun?
The thing about a university setting that's different from other places is the variety of what goes on a campus. If you're a person who wants to do the exact same thing every day, working in higher ed is not for you.
Right.
And so that's not me. I love a little bit of a different challenge every day. And what makes this job fun is the challenges that folks show up with. Being a problem solver who can help other people get, what they need and what they're trying to achieve.
Right. So to level set everyone, as the CIO at Hofstra here, you oversee information technology systems, also known as ITS. So what are the major responsibilities of ITS, and how does the unit support student success and faculty scholarly and creative activities?
I think of us as one of those kind of service organizations on campus. There's a bunch of them. They're the kind of core administrative units are all here to really serve everyone on campus, no matter what your role is. And so ITS is one of those. And what we do is we kind of help the university apply technology in any context to any one of our what I call hopes and dreams, whatever our goals and objectives are. For me, ITS is really about kind of connecting human beings with technology and making sure that the tech is doing what it's supposed to be doing or what it needs to be doing for Hofstra to be successful. How do we achieve that? Well, we are divided up into all of the kind of organizations that you tend to see in an IT org. We have the infrastructure team, digital infrastructure. We have an enterprise team that does data and things like that. We have cybersecurity teams, we have support teams, and then my team in the office of the CIO that kind of keep that all moving, kind of manage the money and the contracts and all that kind of stuff. All of that, though, is in service of what the university is trying to achieve.
Right.
And at this moment, it's kind of made the IT organization kind of central to some of the things we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It touches everything we do on the campus, no question. So as the CIO, you were deeply involved in the development of the university's new strategic plan, Hofstra 100, as you served as co-chair on the Organizational Agility Committee, along with Rich Apollo. Mm-hmm. So what does organizational agility mean at Hofstra, and why is it of such significance that it's been identified as one of the four main goals of the strategic plan?
What it means fundamentally, what organizational agility means at Hofstra, is transformation in a lot of ways. It's how the university is going to adapt to be the Hofstra that we need for Hofstra 100. At our 100th anniversary, what should Hofstra look like? The organizational agility pillar of the strategic plan is kind of about building the foundation for achieving that and getting us to kind of the other aspects of the strategic plan, kind of how do we achieve all of the things that we've laid out in the plan and how do we build an organization that can deliver on all of those aspirations.
Right.
Kind of some pieces and parts of that. It's being responsive to change, kind of embracing change. Everybody who exists in the world today can kind of identify with how quickly the world changes at this point. Agility is about not kind of reacting to that change, but rather letting it kind of flow with you and being able to adapt in the moment, to capitalize on opportunities, to react to risks, and to kind of drive the bus. You don't want to be the folks who are kind of reacting to things and getting kind of stuck in change that keeps you from moving forward. You want to be moving forward and kind of moving with the world as it's adapting. When I describe agility, it's about delivering the right value to the right people at the right time.
Perfect.
It's about making sure that we as an institution have the right programs, we're doing the right research, that we are connecting our administrative processes, all those things to meet each individual on the campus and to our community as well, where they need us to meet them. And agility is the foundation for that. If I were to draw the strategic plan, which has these 4 pillars we talk about, when you talk about them as 4 pillars, you imagine them kind of side by side. I think there are 3 pillars that have this agility pillar as a foundation underneath them. And it is there to support everything else that we aspire to do.
Right. So since agility is so integral to all that we're doing on campus and it really impacts the culture, is it fair to say that every member of the campus community has some role to play in facilitating our desires to be more agile and more responsive to change?
Yeah, every person on campus has a role to play, and I think folks might not even recognize the role they're playing because sometimes the role you're playing is that of customer, right? And when I say customer, there's so many different types of customers on Hofstra's campus, but they're folks who need something from Hofstra, whatever that is, whether they're here for an education or they're here to work. The act of kind of accepting value from the institution is a role within agility. You're helping to define that. Hopefully you're participatory in that. You're sharing your feedback. You're asking for the things that you need so the university has that as information to help us pivot and to meet you with those resources. Everyone has a role to play. I think this is one of those that is a very grassroots. There's not a top-down approach here that's actually going to accomplish the things we've laid out in the plan. It's going to be about, in many ways, those objectives kind of bubbling up through the institution and having leadership that can capitalize on what we're learning through our shared processes.
Right. Makes good sense. So organizational agility was so profound, I would say, in the strategic planning efforts last academic year that the campus and everyone really rallied around the notion that a standing organizational agility committee should exist as the plan moves forward. Can you tell us a little bit about the committee as it's launching? What campus roles are serving on that committee, and how might the committee be prioritizing its work out of the gates?
The Organizational Agility Committee is really an extension of the work that we did in strategic planning. It was clear from the beginning that this was a conversation that was not going to have a defined beginning and end.
Right.
And we had to get organized with the planning part of it because we had a kind of distinct set of deliverables that we were trying to get into that strategic planning process. But there was so much more we wanted to talk about. And so we recommended as a committee that there be a standing organizational agility to kind of pass the baton to and continue that conversation. And so that's what this committee is about. It's tasked with thinking critically about the university in all aspects of what we do, all of our operations. We've asked the questions, what should we start doing or do differently? What should we stop doing? What work is most essential to achieving the university's strategic goals? That's the mission of this group, and we've pulled together this cross-functional representation. It's a small group. There's only about 7 or 8 folks on the committee, but they represent pretty much the entire institution, including a faculty member who is joining us. The work that we're doing in prioritizing our work is kind of deciding how to work. That's an interesting question to ask when you make something new. Someone says to you, have at it. You come up with a set of recommendations. Well, how do you go about doing that in a group? And so we spent some time this semester talking about what are some of the things that carry over from that strategic planning conversation? What are some of the things that are new? As folks have found out that there is a committee, they share their hopes and aspirations and try to get it in the door. And so we've been getting organized around that. Ultimately, we will prepare a set of recommendations which will go to leadership and ultimately the president and turn into projects, new initiatives at the institution. So far, we haven't actually released that set of objectives, although I think that we will be seeing something in the next month or so from the committee. I can say the conversation is broadly around reimagining processes, getting rid of paper process, getting rid of levels of bureaucracy. How do you make it so a student doesn't have to get 7 approvals for something to get done? How do you kind of make the university feel better to be a member of the community? And how do you empower folks on the campus so that they're not necessarily, going up 7 levels of a chain to get an approval to get something done?
Exactly.
That's a big part of what the committee is focused on at the outset, with the understanding that if we do that work, which may be invisible to the folks who actually experience the benefit of it, it will help free up folks at Hofstra to think more strategically about the other aspects of the plan. So that's a lot of what we're talking about. And the rest of the conversation has really been around, what are those kind of big ticket processes that everybody touches on campus that if we just improved, even if it was a 20% improvement, would be huge to the campus. And so that is a very interesting conversation with such a diverse group.
Right. Well, I love the use of the word empowerment, too, because I think for this exercise to be as successful as we all want it to be and know it's going to be, I go back to the notion that every member of the campus community has a role to play. Mm-hmm. And in any individual's sort of work process as an administrator or a staff member, or the experiences of a student, those experiences need to be brought to the attention of the committee to help move things forward. And some of the best ideas to resolve some of these challenges are going to come from those that are working day to day in the trenches, so to speak. How can members of the campus community, and it sounds like you're already hearing from some who are anxious to get going, faculty, students, administrators, and staff who have their ideas, how might they bring these topics and perhaps even potential solutions to the attention of the Organizational Agility Committee?
I would first say they should. So everyone who listens to this and has an idea, I hope that they will really come forward with those ideas and feel empowered themselves to share what they're thinking. The committee has a co-chair, again, Rich Apollo, and myself are co-chairing the committee, and we are able to receive those ideas and kind of be your friendly neighborhood organizational agility co-chairs. Folks can email us, or if you pass us on the Unispan, you can pass an idea to us in person. There are folks, in each of the units who are kind of broadly known to their units that are participating and could receive ideas as well. And I think you can also pass them through, your leadership. If you have an idea that you think should be presented, you can absolutely pass that idea, through kind of normal channels if you're more comfortable doing that, or you can go direct if you're more comfortable. Right. The point is to get those ideas in the hands of the committee, however you feel most comfortable.
And it strikes me, too, there's also an opportunity for folks in specific units that have ideas within their unit that may not impact all of campus and therefore may not be appropriate for the Organizational Agility Committee, but they should certainly bring those ideas and concepts to the attention of the unit leaders so that they can start implementing the kind of change that they want to see.
Yeah, some improvements are just so basic they feel like they don't really have any impact, right? If I just make this one little part of my process easier, that'll be great for me, but it won't really impact everybody else. If you repeat that, if that becomes part of your ethos, it's just how you work, it just pays huge dividends over time. So absolutely, folks should be sharing, talking about this. This should be kind of central to the conversations that are happening on campus around implementation of the plan for sure, but also just kind of how we run the place. How should this place run? When you talk about designing the university of the future, as you said before, each person on this campus has a stake in kind of designing that, and it starts with communication.
Yeah, very exciting, very exciting. So President Poser has emphasized the critical importance of assessment and measuring our collective progress towards the strategic plan's goals. Some projects will succeed, as we've talked about, others will not, with an appreciation that we often learn much more from our failures. With various projects planned, assessment and reflection are necessary to benchmark our progress. So what does success look like in organizational agility?
It will look different at different times. I think fundamentally success looks like a sustained conversation about agility on campus, that we are successful in the kind of cultural transformation that is so much of what we're talking about. If people are talking about it and integrating it into the way that they run their area, they run their process, the way they interact with a student, the way they interact with a faculty member, that kind of persistence that only the individuals can actually cause to happen on campus, that's a form of success. And I think when I look around, that will help me to know that we're actually moving the needle. In the near term, we have this organizational agility committee that is putting together a list of priorities, and I think success will look like the first batch of those priorities turning into resourced projects that are actually happening on campus.
Right.
Not necessarily completing those, in the next 12 months, really making progress in understanding what are those priorities that we share that deliver on the strategic plan that should be resourced with our time, with investments, with all of that, and kind of letting the campus see that movement as well, and having that shared story that we're all part of around agility. And then over the longer term, I think it looks like a transformed institution. If you're a student today and you come back as an alum and you look around the university and you talk to a student who's in the same program or at kind of a similar point that you were, what is their experience if they tell you, yeah, it's just so easy to get things done at Hofstra. Hofstra has the right program for me right now. Hofstra is delivering exactly the education I need to be successful. If we are able to kind of meet students where they need us to be, meet faculty where they need us to be, grow that research enterprise on campus, and have the kind of underlying apparatus that allows everyone on campus to be creative and empowered, that's what long-term success looks like in agility to me.
Right. Sounds great. I'm glad you mentioned the word program, because when we talk about organizational agility, what seems to come to mind to most people is the business of the university, as we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. But there's a huge role to play within organizational agility in terms of our academic programs as well and our curricula. So I'm glad you really highlighted that.
Absolutely.
So now I want to turn to another topic, since we have the CIO here. That's certainly of great importance to Hofstra higher education and society writ large, and that's generative artificial intelligence. At Hofstra, we are committed to bringing these transformative tools into all that we do: student learning, scholarly and creative activities, and even the business of higher education. ITS is a thought leader in helping Hofstra leverage these technologies while being mindful of the privacy and ethical concerns that generative AI brings. And you're thinking about this constantly, I know, Jesse. This fall, we launched a pilot with OpenAI that brings to campus 500 individual site licenses of ChatGPT. Can you tell us about the pilot, what makes it different than the free version of ChatGPT that's available more broadly? And can you provide a couple of examples of how the technology is being used at Hofstra through the pilot?
I appreciate that you fully understand all of the different aspects of generative AI that we have to think about, right? It's not just about having a tool that's put in front of you. When we talk about transformation, AI is the perfect example of technological transformation.
Well, it helps that I listen to you when you speak, because you've been very clear about the complexity of the challenges in front of us.
Absolutely. The OpenAI ChatGPT pilot is really a reflection of our understanding of that complexity and trying to deliver what I call a sandbox, a safe place for folks to experiment with AI where we can control the security, the data privacy, and not have too many different options for folks at once, where we can kind of monitor how folks want to use it and see kind of what are the security implications, what are the collaboration implications, how do we make sure that folks can work together with these technologies, et cetera.
Right.
So we evaluated several tools before we selected OpenAI's tool, and we specifically chose it because they released ChatGPT EDU, which is an education-focused version, which addresses a bunch of the concerns that folks have with bringing AI into an academic environment and kind of having a tool that serves multiple constituencies. And so we have this sandbox today. As you said, it has the 500 licenses. We're inviting faculty and administrators through a call for proposals, and we've taken those in multiple waves or multiple rounds over the course of this semester so far. We've got about 200 folks using the platform. Not all of them use the platform in any given week, but there's 200 who are in the program, have a proposal going. Each of them benefits from the ChatGPT EDU security with those collaboration features, with the ability to use the tool a little more freely than is safe or ethical to do with the free version.
Right.
The free version of ChatGPT has what we call a training issue, which is that everything you type into it is used by OpenAI to train the platform, which is to improve the platform. That has some implications. When you share something with that platform, you're one of millions of people who happen to be using that version of ChatGPT. Something you ultimately teach that tool could end up being used by someone that you weren't planning for it to be used by. And so having the sandbox, we are able to not just turn off, it's actually impossible for OpenAI to use the tool to use Hofstra's data for training. That relieves some of the concern that we have about folks sharing research data or sharing, certain other types of information with the tool and having that potentially end up somewhere we didn't plan for it to go. So the sandbox provides that kind of safe space for people to play around. We have folks using it across the institution for many different types of exercises. Some proposals are so simple. I want to work on writing prompts that I will then integrate into my course. I just want to have a license that I can use to figure out what the right prompts are for me to share with my students so that they can use the free version ultimately to deliver whatever coursework that I would like them to deliver. We have folks using it in research who are just trying to do analysis of huge data sets, and they would like the assistance of ChatGPT for visualization, or they want it to just try to find trends and patterns in data that's hard to find with other types of tools. And then in the administrative side, we have folks using it a lot for kind of resource planning type things of how we have this many of something, what's the best way to deploy that? An example that I've heard is the bus schedule. How do we make the bus schedule match the train schedule? How do we make this number of classrooms work for all of these classes we have to offer? How do we do those sorts of things? And then again, just like in research, folks are using it for kind of trend analysis, de-identified data, looking at sort of reports you would look at anyway, but kind of having that second set of digital eyes that can help you find a trend that maybe you wouldn't have found on your own. We're getting some good feedback from folks with those proposals, and we're continuously receiving new proposals. It's really interesting to see how the creativity has evolved as people have gotten used to what these tools can do. Their presence on Hofstra's campus, they may have talked with a person who's already doing something and said, I want to collaborate with that person and build something together. It's really going pretty well so far.
Oh, that's fantastic. So these are exciting and compelling examples of how Hofstra is innovating. For faculty and administrators and staff that are interested in accessing the OpenAI pilot, because you said about 200 licenses have been distributed so far, what's the best way for one to apply for a site license? And what are some of the deliverables that are expected?
So faculty have a process that is going through EdTech. So they're going through a two-step process where kind of collaborating with EdTech a little bit on their proposals, and then EdTech is passing those proposals back through a review with ITS. So faculty who want to use ChatGPT EDU for teaching, learning, research would connect with EdTech to do that. And for administrators, and including academic administration, so folks who want to use ChatGPT in a school and have an administrative use case for it. Those are being submitted directly to me for now, along with Gene Pete and Christodoulou. The two of us are reviewing those, and kind of we're doing a security review and then kind of looking for overlap. Sometimes you find that two people want to work on the same thing, and you want to connect those two people and let them know, hey,
fantastic.
You both had a similar idea. So those can be submitted directly to me. I have a very easy email address, jesse.webster@hofstra.edu. Send it on, and we can review it. And what often happens is we'll have a consultative conversation once you've submitted that, and then provide the license once we've kind of figured out exactly what your use case is and how you're going to execute it.
Yeah, terrific. And between ITS and EdTech, and you mentioned Mitch Case and EdTech, it's my understanding that there are some resources available for education and training and workshops so that when we're getting the license in the hands of users, they've got some framework to understand the powers of the tools that they're getting into.
Yes. So uniquely for this, we are kind of sharing resources between what faculty would normally get through EdTech, just kind of the standard webinars and other materials that are always provided by EdTech for supporting academic technology. Those generally apply to the administrators who are using these tools as well. And so we're trying to kind of have a shared conversation around these tools to make sure that those resources are generally available to everybody. There are other resources that through that consultation, we may determine that you need other types of training. And so some of that training is as simple as sitting down for an hour and talking about data de-identification. How do I take this particular data and make it safe to use with ChatGPT? That's a easy conversation for us to have and kind of work with you directly. In other instances, there have been some proposals where it might make sense to have some specialty training on a topic that's relevant. Some folks want to use video, for instance. How do we kind of figure out the best way for you to integrate video into a workflow with this particular tool? There's other types of research use cases where you might want to connect another faculty member from another institution who's doing similar work and kind of pull those folks together. And so while there's not a kind of packaged up type of training for that, we have planned for those types of training engagements and connections. I can only highlight how important it is to have those conversations because then we can connect resources to you. The point is everyone should have the resources that they need, both what we have predicted and made available and what we might not have been able to predict and maybe you need to ask for or we can help determine by digging deep into the proposal that you submit and figuring that out.
The advantage of running it as a pilot is we're going to learn and respond accordingly. That's great.
Well, that's the other piece of this is that you asked what is expected of folks who participate. We are asking everybody to participate in a community of practice around AI, and that includes sharing your experiences, successes, failures. It's hard to get started because I can't use this tool for my use case. We've had some conversations with folks who've tried the tool and they've had some initial success, but then it doesn't actually get them where they want to go. That's okay. It's part of the experimentation. And we've determined, hey, maybe this is not the right tool for you to do that. And now we know that, and we can start looking at other tools that might be available. So we're asking folks to not just to get a license and have it and use it, but to get a license, have it, use it, and share with everybody else what it's been like for you to use that. And we're doing that in big ways, having shared meetings that will be pulling folks together, and in smaller ways, including just kind of connecting a couple folks together or having a conversation with ed tech or having a conversation with myself and folks from my team to kind of figure out what's going well and not going well.
Right. Thanks. It's going to be fascinating to see the various ways our faculty and administrators are going to be using these licenses during the pilot and ultimately how they're going to contribute to advancing AI's role in supporting Hofstra's educational mission as well as our efforts to lead in organizational agility. So thank you very much, Jesse, for speaking with me today and for your continued efforts as we implement Hofstra's strategic plan.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you for joining us. And until the next episode, go Pride.
If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas for Hofstra's Campus Conversations, please email podcast@hofstra.edu. Hofstra University has produced and provides this podcast for general information only. It is created in collaboration with WRHU Studios.